Let's go from the top, guys. Fannie Mae's chief economist on the housing market outlook. Economic growth likely to slow. Central bank won't cut rates until the end of quarter 2, 2024. I don't even know about that anymore, but let's see what Doug Duncan has to say.
Doug Duncan. We got another uncle, right? We got Uncle Powell, Uncle Doug. All these guys just giving us some news. Yeah. But, I mean, he sounds like he's a little optimistic. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, he's only predicting a 50-50 chance of another rate hike. So thank you, Uncle Duncan.
Yeah, I think that's like going to change. I mean, it always changes. I mean, it goes up or down based on market sentiment. And, it's funny, though, because sometimes, depending on the conversation, we go, sentiment doesn't matter. Data matters, right? And then you go, wait, we must be measuring sentiment for a reason. And then you go, it's because of this. How people feel about things ultimately sometimes does determine where they have to go next. So.
I just love the news that they keep giving us, Andy. Same news.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that in preparation for the show today, where you're like, we do have a lot of, let's say, dour or less positive things to talk about nowadays. Yeah. But then I was looking back at some other shows and client email, video newsletters we were sending, and we were sharing a lot of good news about appreciation and rates being their lowest historically, and all sorts of like great information that at that time, that's just what was going on seasonally in the in the lifespan of real estate and mortgage. And this is now the other side of that coin. It's tough.
I like that you're saying seasonal, because this is seasonal. This will pass.
Yeah.
It's just kind of braced right now for what we can expect, which is it is what it is. A low inventory housing market right now. Obviously, he's predicting right now that things are cooling down, and we're already noticing it. We're sensing that. That's just because of the high interest rate, the affordability, and there's lots that go into it. So he's not giving us false information, but it's just the same thing, redundant. Well,
it just makes you wonder, right? Because a lot of times it is the same thing, and you hear, okay, this person has the same opinion as these 5 other people, and then you hear some counter opinion, and you go, well, geez, why are they saying that? I mean, the other day I was reading an article about Jamie Dimon, the CEO of Chase Bank, and he's saying that investors need to get ready for the Fed to be at 7%. It's like, well, wait, hold on a second, where's that coming from? And then you hear other people say, like, yeah, the Fed can't stop this, and they'll have to continue raising rates until the job is done, and they're saying the job's not done until 2%, which we're still far away from on inflation. Ooh. So then I go, okay, well, that makes sense too. Like, only, again, like at the top of the show, only there will be one to rule them all, and one opinion will be played out to its fullness, and we'll end up seeing what happens. But at least here's the thing: Fannie Mae coming out and saying this means something for mortgage and real estate. Lawrence Yun, we talk about NAR when we talk about real estate stuff, that matters, and their voice does carry some weight. However, they are only representatives of 2 industries, mortgage and real estate, and don't encapsulate all the other factors that the Fed has to consider in their decisions.
That's right. There's more to it. Well, let's get into this. Fannie Mae chief economist, Uncle Doug.
Yeah. Well, so, part of the problem here is that, the Fed is running off their portfolio, which we've been talking about because we're talking about it. Most people don't know what that means, but they've been running off their balance sheet, which means they are removing risk from themselves and putting it back onto the open market. But that does come at a cost, because the open market, in order to absorb that, has to go, hold on a minute. I need to make sure that me absorbing the risk you're moving yourself away from doesn't come at a cost to me. So that means I'm going to need rates at a higher price for longer in order to be able to sustain carrying all of this debt load. Yeah. And I think that's an untold story in all of this.
Of course.
And probably part of why he's saying he sees it a 50-50 chance is the Fed's going to have to do it, because they're also transferring risk at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
When the risk is super low and rates are like 2.5%, 3%, okay, that's fine. But in an increasing rate environment, that risk increases as well.
Exactly. And we're starting to see these increases in a little bit in everything. Mike and I were even talking about his bank account today. He was all excited because he's getting 5.1% return.
That's high in this market, though.
Yeah,
that's really high.
Well, that's what starts happening, right? A lot of people stop going to banks because of everything that they're hearing. Mm-hmm. And so they're not making those deposits. So the banks have to start making some type of giving an incentive to get a Mikey, get a Will, Andy, like, hey, let me go deposit some of this money, and they're making 5.1%.
Yeah, I mean, the incentive was enough to get me in, so it worked. It definitely worked.
And you might not even remember this, because maybe it wasn't aware. Your awareness wasn't there maybe 2.5 years ago. I mean, were you running your money to bank when it was 0.5% or 0.7% return? Did you even know about it?
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did not, right? You don't know, not because you're...
Well, the return was so small, it wasn't even noticeable.
Right, it's negligible, and that's part of this whole yield conversation. When we're talking about this, like, that's great. 5.1% is outstanding, because that's better than 0.7%.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this is also part of that function of this monetary policy. I mean, When you withdraw volatility from one area, you create volatility in another. And where you increase rates in one side, you have them on another. So in a weird way, a lot of people, in addition to you, Mikey, are benefiting from that same that same spillover effect in this. So
that's how everything's just intertwining with one another.
Yeah. So, I mean, to kind of wrap this part up, I mean, look, I think what we're seeing is this new normal. People are becoming more accustomed to seeing rates at this price. You know, we've been talking about rates in the 7s for now several months, 7.25, 7.5. I mean, we are likely to see 8s. I don't think that's any surprise to anybody. You know, month and a half ago, guys, remember we were saying that like the news headlines, they're like teasing this whole 8% thing because like, let's warm people up. They're just priming everyone to get ready that you're going to see 8s. And I think that that's going to happen because of
Absolutely. It's kind of like when you go to get that massage, you go to Massage Envy, you get they start off really nice, you know, and you're like, had a little pain somewhere. And then once they dig in there to do that deep tissue, put that elbow in there. That's when it hurts, right? And so that's how I think they're doing these things. They're kind of easing and massaging it a little bit. And then boom, when it hits, it's like, I told you so, you know? One of the things that I found interesting in what he said is housing market to cool in the coming months. Well, we'll already see it's happening now. Yeah. You know, and then, but does not anticipate a crash. And that's the thing that we're hearing all over the place. The crash is coming. The 2008 is going to be repeated. Well, he's not predicting that. He predicts that home prices will continue to rise. Well, obviously, simple economics, supply and demand. Here in California, we're having a difficult time with that. We researched 3 zip codes. Here in our local, actually 91913, 1415, and 11, and we only had like 18 homes in a certain price range. Wow. That's crazy.
That is really low.
Yeah, if you look at how many loan officers and how many realtors we have in the area, it's like the numbers just don't make sense, you know? Yeah. So, but I like how he puts that. And then he also expects mortgage rates to remain elevated. Well, hello.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a foregone conclusion. Yeah. But I mean, it's this catch-22, right? We have this demand that's happening, but then we have affordability. Yeah. Like the higher rates go, it squeezes people on their affordability to get their loan qualified, and then it costs them more in order to maintain that, carrying that expense every single month. So it's like the demand is there. There's a want for homes. We lack inventory, and then to finance the home, your carrying cost is going to cost you more, and it's going to take more to qualify.
I'm just more like, Andy, Uncle Doug, tell us something better here.
Yeah,
come
seriously.
on. Yeah, tell us something different than what everybody's already saying.
So I'll tell you this part, and again, maybe this is him just trying to like shine some light on the situation. Here at the end of the article it says, when the Fed is done with the inflation fight and the economic growth is back to the 2% to 2.5% level, mortgage rates will probably run 4.5% to 6% over the cycle. So here's my big question. Yeah, but when's that going to be? That's a great forecast. Yeah. When is that going to be? Yeah. We don't know. He doesn't know. So it's kind of like this, let's give everybody something to hope for, which is fine. We should be optimistic when there's a case to be optimistic, but there's no time frame on that. Yeah. I think that makes this very difficult to make.
It's hard when there's no finish line in sight.
Yeah.
I wish it was like The Price is Right. Probably something you never even heard, right, Mike?
I've heard of it.
What?
Yeah, I haven't watched it.
But it's like The Price is Right. Like just door number 1, 2, or 3, and it's like it'll just happen now, right? Yeah. We'll get rewarded immediately.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've talked about this before too. Like, people are going to have to make a choice. The market's going to do what the market's going to do. There's going to be more contraction in mortgage and real estate. There's going to be more attrition. You see a lot of people leaving the industry, and that's fine. I mean, a lot of people are going to have to do that. And again, to everyone who's watching, and maybe you're watching our show for the first time, one of the advantages of being able to sit here and talk about these things is that, at least for Will, for Memo, and myself, having done this for 18 years collectively, 18 years apiece now, our collective experience allows us to sit here and tell you the insides and outs and what things are happening on the back end and what that means to people in the front
Absolutely. Side. Andy, you can't buy experience. You have to go through it.
You definitely pay for it, though.
Oh my God. There we go. But the good thing about this is just one expert's opinion, right? So it's just an opinion. Yeah. There's others in there. What really is going to help us understand all of this is really what's happening in the market. Yeah. Okay. And we're not just talking about real estate. We're not talking about just, lending. We're talking about in general. There's a lot of things that factor into all of this. Mm-hmm. The job market is just strong.
Yeah, that's been a stubborn point in this whole thing.
Very
I think
stubborn.
I think that's also part of why, Doug from Fannie Mae says this. And again, that's a catch-22.
Yeah.
The job market being strong allows people to have jobs, which again helps them qualify. And if they have good paying jobs, then they can meet the affordability standard in order to get into a home. But on the other side, the jobs being sticky and being the tight labor market means that the Fed's going to keep rates higher for longer, and they won't ease up until they see a correction in that. So it's this tug, and it's like a tug of war that's just constant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, they continue to buy gas at the prices that they're $6 and change.
Hey guys,
I know. I went to
$7.39 the other day. I saw $7.39.
Really, I
Yep.
found some cheap gas the other day for $5.75.
Oh, there
so
you
it was
go.
only $90 to fill my tank. I wasn't revving the engine on the way home. There was a downhill. I took my foot out the
a neutral.
gas. I'm not using any more
Let it
gas.
Andy, you remember those times? Just put it on neutral
Oh yeah.
and go.
And I hate to admit
go with the momentum.
that me thinking, wow, $90 to fill my tank. That was a great deal.
I know. Isn't that crazy how like the opinion has shifted? I mean, but again, that's kind of part and parcel for the same thing with our buyers too. It's like, oh, we're getting used to 7% rates,
Yeah,
7.25.
we're just used to it now.
I mean, isn't that crazy? Like, at one point they were saying, oh, into 2023, we should be at the 5.5. And like, that's going to be it. But we're way past that.
Yeah,
if you
we
called
are.
someone right now and said 5.5, you'd have like 10 people out the door.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because if you told them that in 2022, that 5.5 would be a good rate, like, you're nuts. You're way out of bounds. 3 all day. Give me 3.
Yeah.
Like, they ain't getting 3.
That's crazy
You're
how
not
the
getting
times
5.5
change.
now.
Oh yeah, and it's going to continue to change. The good thing is you're young enough to understand this change, and you're actually in one of the toughest industries that have these cycles. I mean, the good thing is I always said back in the day, 10 years of a good, prosperous real estate market, and then we'd have like 3-4 years of a not so good, challenging one. So the good thing is you're going through this, you're understanding it, and the name fits you, Lonesome Mike.
It's been long enough. I have a good understanding.
Yeah.
It can change, guys.
You got your work uncles over here in the corner.
Yeah.